What if the biggest, most important secret in the world wasn't buried in some vault, but was right out in the open, hiding in plain sight? That's the really provocative idea we're diving into today, and it comes straight from the book Hiding in Plain Sight by Ken Bowers. We're going to unpack its central arguments, one piece at a time.
So, the book kicks things off with this powerful quote from J. Edgar Hoover, and it really sets the stage perfectly, doesn't it? It gets you thinking, what if a conspiracy was so enormous, so monstrous, that its best defense, its best camouflage, is our own inability to even believe it could be real?
Okay, so here's our game plan. First, we'll look at the core idea of hiding in plain sight. Then, we'll explore this fascinating Punch and Judy metaphor for control. After that, we'll get into the money. He who has the gold. We'll use the creation of the Federal Reserve as a key case study and wrap it all up with a look at what the book describes as the overall system of control.
All right, first up, hiding in plain sight. So, what is the core argument, the fundamental premise of this whole theory? Let's jump right in.
And just so we're all on the same page, everything we're about to go over comes directly from our source material, which is Ken Bowers' book, Hiding in Plain Sight. Our job here is just to explain the theory exactly as it's laid out in the book.
And here it is, the central thesis, right here in a nutshell. The book argues that the greatest deception of all is convincing the world that there is no deception. The secret to its success, according to the author, isn't about secret meetings or hidden files. It's about operating right out in the open, making us believe that what we're seeing is just normal, that there's no man behind the curtain pulling the levers.
Okay, so how would this kind of hidden control actually work? Well, to explain it, the book uses this really powerful and kind of clever metaphor, a classic Punch and Judy puppet show.
I mean, think about it, right? When you watch a Punch and Judy show, you see these two puppets going at it, fighting like crazy. It looks like a real conflict, but what's actually happening? There's one puppeteer, just one, whose hands are controlling both puppets. He's creating the conflict. The book's argument is that many of the world's biggest conflicts are staged in pretty much the exact same way.
Now, this is a really key point the book makes. It's not talking about some kind of total micromanaging control, controlling what you eat for breakfast or what color shirt you wear. The idea here is what the source calls effective control. It's about steering the big picture, the overall direction humanity is headed, all while we go about our daily lives feeling like we're totally free.
So, how could something like that even be achieved? According to the book, the method is something called gradual habituation. You've probably heard the analogy of boiling a frog, right? You don't just throw it into boiling water. You put it in cool water and slowly turn up the heat. The book says society is manipulated the same way, not with one big, shocking change, but with tiny, incremental steps over years, even decades. Each little step seems harmless, maybe even reasonable, but when you add them all up, they've moved society to a place it never would have agreed to go all at once.
And here's where the book starts connecting that puppet show metaphor to the real world. It lays out these massive conflicts, communism versus the free world, the Democratic Party versus the Republican Party, Israel versus the Arab world, and it basically suggests, hey, what if these are all just Punch and Judy? What if these apparent enemies are just two puppets on the same pair of hands, created to distract us while pushing for the very same long-term agenda?
Now, to support this idea, the source highlights these two quotes, both from 1991. Look at this. On one side, you've got George Bush, the President of the United States, leader of the free world. On the other, Mikhail Gorbachev, leader of the Soviet Union. These guys are supposed to be polar opposites, right? Ideological enemies. And yet, the book points out that in the very same year, both of them are on the world stage talking about moving toward a new world order. Kind of makes you think, huh?
Okay, so that brings us to the next big piece of the puzzle. What's the engine that allegedly drives this whole system? Well, according to the book, it all comes down to money. Financial power is presented as the ultimate tool of control.
The author boils it down to a simple, ancient principle. He who has the gold makes the rules. The argument is straightforward. If you can control a nation's money, how it's created, how it flows, you can effectively write the rules for everybody else without them even realizing it.
And the book points out that this is not some new, radical idea. It actually brings up historical figures like Thomas Jefferson, citing this quote. The warning is pretty stark, right? That if you let private banks control the money, they and the corporations around them will eventually strip the people of their property. This idea is absolutely central to the financial side of the book's argument.
And this is where the theory gets really specific. The book claims that the U.S. Federal Reserve
isn't federal at all. It argues that it's a private corporation. And then it goes on to list the alleged original owners. You've got the Rothschilds in London, the Warburgs in Berlin, the Rockefellers and Lehman Brothers in New York, basically a who's who of the most powerful banking families in the world at the time.
So how does the book back up such a huge claim? Well, it presents the story of how the Federal Reserve was created as its key piece of evidence, its prime example, a detailed case study in what it calls secret manipulation. The story, as told in the book, sounds like something out of a spy novel. It goes like this. In 1910, 7 men, who together represented something like a quarter of the entire world's wealth, met in absolute secrecy on a private island off the coast of Georgia called Jekyll Island. Their goal, according to the source, to figure out how to create a central bank that looked like a government agency but was actually controlled by them. And the result of that secret meeting was the blueprint for what we now know as the Federal Reserve System.
And this is fascinating. The author then breaks down the name itself, arguing it was intentionally deceptive. Let's look at the words. Federal, to make you think it's part of the government, when the book claims it's a private corporation. Reserve, to make you think there are actual reserves of gold or silver backing up the currency, which the book says there weren't. And system, to make it sound decentralized, when it was allegedly a highly centralized cartel run by a few powerful banks. And to really hammer home the alleged gravity of what happened, the book shares this absolutely stunning quote. It's attributed to President Woodrow Wilson himself, the man who actually signed the Federal Reserve Act into law. "I have unwittingly ruined my country." I mean, wow. Talk about an admission of regret.
So, okay, the creation of the Fed is the book's key case study. But what's the end game? What's the bigger picture it's trying to paint? It's about a system of control that isn't just national but global. To illustrate this, the author pulls a quote from historian Carol Quigley, who the book presents as an insider with knowledge of the plan. And listen to this goal: to create a world system of financial control in private hands, able to dominate the politics of every country and the economy of the world as a whole. I mean, according to the source, the ambition here is total.
And so we're left with this one big final question posed by the theory in hiding in plain sight. The source claims there's a few people controlling the many from the shadows. So if the world really is like that puppet show, if the conspiracy is so monstrous we can't even bring ourselves to believe it, what does it really mean to stop looking at the puppets and start looking for the person behind the curtain?